Hello, everybody. This is Mike Nawrocki. I am the director and one of the writers on Sweetpea Beauty.
And this is Leslie Ferrell. I'm producer, executive producer on the show, or what I like to refer to as Queen Bee.
Queen Bee. Queen of the ball.
Which it certainly fits with the show.
That's right, being our
We have
first
a queen.
very princess,
Yes.
all-girl princess show.
Yes.
So,
This was such an exciting show to put together, certainly as a, the group of the women that were involved in the concepting. Because, we used to sit around, it was fun sitting around with you, Mike, and just kind of throwing out, hey, we need a gown and a crown. And lots of sparkly.
and lots of sparkly. And it's funny because, with a show mostly over the years being, developed and written by guys, coming up with a princess story isn't the most natural thing, and I remember, Duke and the Great Pie War, which was initially Princess in the Pie War, was kind of our first attempt, but then I remember we ran in, what was it, the next princess attempt that we took was sort of a Rapunzel story and then a kind of a detective Cinderella story,
right.
But didn't quite have all of the, what women were looking for from a true princess story. So
right,
it was great getting that direction from you to say, okay, what if we did a couple of, real true princess stories?
Oh, you did a great job. I mean, you just took on what, we started with what's just that, dream of every little girl. Every little girl at some level, wants to be perceived as beautiful.
Yeah, and just that whole topic of image and how we see ourselves and how we think other people see ourselves and how that affects, how we feel about ourselves and contrasting that with what the Bible says about how God sees us and how He looks at the heart rather than on the outside. So I think that was just a great thing to concentrate on, was that topic of inner beauty.
Well, I know you have a girl, and having raised a girl, I really, the pressure, for my daughter to look, a certain way and, dress a certain way and, to evidently find acceptance or a sense of belonging, it's just so upside down from really what God's wishes are.
Yeah.
And, to build your self-esteem on something, that false is just so destructive. And I really am so thankful that my daughter sees, that, God values her, period, and that her real beauty's from within. And that's what, we really want.
We really want
exactly. Little girls and young women to get from this show.
And that Annie here, obviously Annie is the voice of Allie, my daughter, so it's kind of neat having her in the show in that sense. And this is Lauren, one of Allie's good friends, so that was really fun.
Oh, that was probably fun for them to participate
to be together. That's great, and they're both kind of in that age where that's sort of the thoughts that they're starting to have. And of course, Cydney Trent as Petunia, who's actually going to come and visit.
She's going to
us
be a
in
guest
little bit.
later
That's
on,
right.
isn't
Yeah,
she?
yep. She'll be in our commentary a little later on. So, this is the story of Snooderella. A bunch of folks may remember the story, Snoodle's Tale, which we did a number of years ago, which was a very Seussian, story. About a little Snoodle who went up to the mountain to talk to his creator and find out how he was special. And it was it was a really wonderful story about self-worth and where we should get our self-worth. And we thought it would just be really fun to do a kind of a girl version of that. The original Snoodle's Tale was a little boy Snoodle who did that. And we thought, what would it look like to have that journey happen with a girl Snoodle? And the name Snooderella was just it just had a catchy feel to it.
Oh,
so.
It was perfect. What better way to do it than to put it as an overlay to the classic fairy tale Cinderella. It's just perfect. You really just did it so smart and clever.
Well, thanks. And so, yeah, just being able to pull that familiar, everybody knows the story of Cinderella and what that, and that one's just been, if you look at that as a Christian, what does that say about beauty, that, she was plain and she was made beautiful, and then she got the prince by being beautiful. And we wanted to look at that from slightly different direction as she goes to the ball that the king is throwing, what does the king have to say about her and her appearance? And we just wanted to really parallel that with what God says about us and how he loves us.
Right. I love that. And not to give away the ending here, but I love how in the tale here, Snooderella doesn't leave with the prince, but she leaves with the knowledge that, God loves her just for the way she is.
Yeah.
And, and in that God's going to bring people in our lives that can love us and care for us and be, really his vessel to us of his, care and love. And he'll give us a community that we belong in.
Yep.
It's just a wonderful. I love the whole look of the sets here. Just that, what you mentioned earlier, kind of that Seussical. You can see it in the interiors, and you saw it just earlier in the town.
Yeah.
Where'd you come up with the idea for the little fairy wings? I love that.
Well, the original Snoodle's Tale, they had wings, but they also had backpacks. But we thought it'd be fun to make them look almost more like when you get a princess costume. The fabric on the princess costume, just that kind of that silky look. My little girl has gotten a few princess costumes over the years, and just wanted to kind of incorporate that look into the wings themselves. One of the things I wanted to mention here was about the voices that we had to cast. Typically with our VeggieTales voices, we have our cast of characters, but Snoodle is a whole different world. So casting the female voices, because there are so many female characters, we needed to reach out and make sure we got just the right voices for these characters. And so with Snooderella, and then with the Step Snoodle and Sisters. Step Snoodle and Sisters is Carrie Pisapia, so she did both of those characters. And then Rebecca Walker did the voice for Snooderella. And it was funny as she was reading for that, she started off with a kind of a typical princess voice, and she's done some voiceover work before as a princess. And we just weren't, hitting on what really felt like was appropriate for this character. And I said, what would it sound like if you just got really nerdy on us and just started talking like you were going to like a Lord of the Rings convention or something.
Star Wars convention.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Star Wars fans.
Well, just like a super fan. And, she just had a really great delivery with that. So I'm really happy with the voice here, and she did a great job.
And these ducks, this is the second time they've appeared in our shows.
Yeah, that's right. With Pistachio, we had the Berry Godmother in Pistachio. We just, in that whole fairy tale land of Pistachio, where, the Berry Godmother and the ducks came along, and we wanted to bring that back in. Oh, the Blue Fairy is what she was called, actually, in Pistachio. And of course, since the woodland creatures make up Cinderella, we had to bring in woodland creatures in here, too. So,
do you think I could ever get one of those Spa in the boxes? I think we really
That's a pretty good thing, isn't it?
That's amazing. Just open it up and there it is.
And there you go.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to make sure we make a VeggieTales version.
One of the technical challenges in the show was the mirrors. This whole show is populated with mirrors because it's just a central theme, and obviously how we see ourselves, and that's how we view ourselves, is through mirrors. And so with the countertop, with Snooderella, and in Sweetpea, we use this mirror theme. But from a technical point of view, it's difficult because you really have to shoot. One shot becomes two shots because you have to shoot through the camera of the world itself. And then you have to have another camera that's basically pointed, that's set in the mirror, pointed out to give you your reflections. And so it's like almost double the work when you have a mirror in a shot. So, that was definitely a technical challenge. And of course, we wanted to give Bob a cameo. So that's Snoodle Bob.
Snoodle Bob.
And if you'll notice, he's sort of looking at his hands in wonder, like a little baby when he's down there looking at his hands like, oh, what are these? We wanted to do that with Bob, too.
That is great. The rhyme really carries the story, and just, not only, the words, of course, have meaning, but I think that cadence, adds, kind of that fairy tale and charm.
I'm such a huge Dr. Seuss fan, and of course the original Snoodle's Tale, which Phil wrote, Phil Vischer, was in that kind of that Seussian cadence, and I've always been a huge Dr. Seuss fan, and I'd read so many Dr. Seuss books to my kids, and not only because they loved them, but I just loved reading them. I mean, just reading with that cadence and practicing that and trying to do it without messing up was always a challenge. And but it was a really fun challenge to try to write a whole story like that, and just kind of keep up that cadence, and follow the whole line of the story and the path of the character.
Now, seriously, Mike, you knew all these dance steps, right? Because you and your wife have been taking lessons.
Well, yeah, my wife is such a great dancer, and so we actually met soon after we met. We would go out salsa dancing, and so she taught me how to salsa. And she's a great dancer, and I've become I'm still self-conscious about dancing just because I'm 6'5". So whenever you see a 6'5" guy out there dancing on the dance floor, it sort of sticks out like a sore thumb. So, but yeah, I love all these. It was fun to kind of incorporate all these dances in rhyme.
This is really cute to put the fun dances.
Yeah.
We should do a how to do all the steps. It's part of the bonus
exactly.
features.
Yeah, it was like
how to do the rumba.
That's right.
Yeah, how to do ballroom dancing.
Yeah. It's Tim Hodge, voice of dignified Snoodle.
Oh, super.
And Tim also did the voice of the king, who, he's coming up here in a minute. And Tim was the creator in the original Snoodle's Tale too. So we wanted to bring back that same feeling of that character here. So Tim came and did that voice, and he just did a really good job there.
But look, you follow this story, and here she is. She is beautiful on the outside, and yet I love how you had her make the point. Even when I'm beautiful on the outside, I still don't feel beautiful on the inside or nurtured. That really, that outward beauty, although so many people chase it,
yeah,
it doesn't fulfill.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many, there's so many people who have what the world would consider that outward beauty, but are still very insecure about really who they are and what their place in the world is. And I think that can really be found through what God tells us about ourselves.
Right. It's just how much He longs for us to have that assurance. It's part of the fullness, of belonging to Him. And you really see this here when I love this shot when she turns around and she sees the king. Look at that. There she goes ahead and says it. Again, she's beautiful, and she's like, but I'm an awfully poor choice.
And this was actually that little bit of dialogue was a direct lift from the original Snoodle's Tale, and just sort of an ode to that, and really that same reflection that Snoodle do or Snoodleroo. I forget what his name was, the little Snoodle in the original Snoodle's Tale, but yeah, just carrying that backpack of all those images that people had put in about how they saw him. And then the king basically saying, no, it's about, about the painting that I've drawn of you and what I think of you.
A Snoodle's Tale has been one of the most, through our customer service, Snoodle's Tales we've really had the most comments on that show. Yeah. And they've been pretty revealing, which we've just appreciated, moms in particular that have written about tough spots that some of their kids are going through, particularly as they make transitions during elementary school, and how much that show, really ministered to their children and supported what their parents are trying to do to support them. And we've had schools use the show as a teaching tool, and of course churches and church preschools. And I really think the same will be true of this show.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, it really comes alongside and teaches that, very much needed, tale of, God really looks at the heart. There's the crown. I wish I had a crown.
Little princess crown. Don't you have a little tiara that you can wear around work, Leslie? Oh, a word about the kind of the set here. You know, this is the classic fairy tale castle is Neuschwanstein, which is in Bavaria in Germany. And that ballroom is actually, you know, designed after one of the ballrooms in Neuschwanstein. I had the chance to go there actually with my wife during, and the producer of the Pirates movie, Paula Marcus. We went, we recorded the score for Pirates in Prague, and then got to go down to Munich, you know, for a few days after we were finished.
Hey, talk about the moment at the end, Mike. I really liked how you wrapped up that the kind of the teaching moment.
Oh, of the just that you know, after having danced with the king, she could go back to her world, and even though, you know, she still might be getting the same outward messaging from her sisters and her step-snoodle, she had danced with the king, and she knew what he thought about her, and that made what they said about her not mean as much to her anymore. So.
Next up on Veggie Shopping Network, pants.
Okay.
All right, here we go. There's some pants.
Here's some pants.
This song, I have a friend, Ian Eskelin, who is just a tremendous singer-songwriter, who actually Brian Mitchell here at Big Idea introduced me to. And Ian pitched this song idea, and just a fun, bouncy song called Pants. He had written it with a friend of his, Doug McKelvey, and we just had such a fun time putting this together. They originally wrote it as an auction song, you know, so he's like trying to auction off pants. And so we took it in and developed it and just said, oh, it'd be really fun to actually have it as a veggie shopping network, you know, so it kind of suited itself really well to TV. So Larry's just trying to pitch pants. So instead of, you know, the price going up on a single pair of pants, we're counting down the pants that we're selling, like they do on, you know, the Home Shopping Network.
And Jimmy and Jerry are perfect, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, just putting them on stilts.
Just putting them on stilts is funny.
Yeah, just the ridiculousness of...
short,
and Brian Roberts did those animated 2D pants. He did a great job on those.
Yeah, going
But
across
yeah, just
the
the
screen.
ridiculousness of, you know, vegetables and pants. Of course, they're on stilts now.
Well done.
Don't hesitate while sales are final.
To summarize, you might recall their pants if you're short and shorts if you're tall.
4, 3, 2, 1, going, done!
We're out of pants, we gotta run. Pants.
You've got some skinny legs.
Pants.
Well, everybody, we have a very special guest joining us now. It's Cydney Trent, who is the voice of Petunia Rhubarb. Hey, Cydney, how you doing?
Hey, Mike. Hi, Leslie. Thanks for letting me sit in a bit.
Oh, sure. So, Cydney, what was it like to have Petunia play a princess again?
You know, I was so excited to take Petunia back to her original roots. Her very first release in the VeggieTales series was Duke and the Great Pie War, and that was where we first created Petunia, and a big part of her was her innocence, her raw innocence, and her giggle. And it was so fun to get to go back to the basics and pull out that giggle and that light, fun, airy, honest Petunia.
Well, what was really cool is it was such a contrast to Madame Blueberry, who was really struggling with her beauty.
I loved that Petunia felt so square on her feet and so strong about what she believed in. And I think a lot of that has to do with the happy-go-lucky side of her, which is interesting because in life, the children in our world are the happy-go-lucky, they're the younger ones. And as adults, we tend to lose some of that. And it's nice to bring that back in. She is an adult, but she still has that happy-go-lucky feeling that a child may, and particularly when she's running in the forest and she's talking with the animals, and it's just happy, it's just good.
Yeah. Well, do you think that Petunia connects with young girls?
I absolutely do, particularly in the world today with the struggles that young girls face about their physical appearance. And since Petunia is a role model, it made me very, very proud to be able to speak for the cause and let little girls everywhere, and boys as well, actually, know that it's about what's on the inside, and it's not about what's on the outside, and that you don't have to be anything specific. You don't have to conform to the way that others are. You are special in your own self. And so, yes, it meant a lot, and I do feel that this will be an exceptional role for her to reach out and touch.
Cool. So does playing a princess fulfill a childhood dream for you?
It does, although I have to giggle at that question, because when you're a child, or a little girl, I should say, and you dream of being a princess, you don't usually picture yourself to be a vegetable. So it's been kind of fun and quirky for me. So I don't know, I giggle when I think about that. I'm a rhubarb princess, and it's awesome, and it definitely brings me to some of my childhood dreams, especially the way it speaks to the kids.
Cool. Well, all right. Well, I know you have to go, but thanks for stopping by. It was a pleasure having you as part of the show.
Thank you so much, Mike. It is a pleasure for me, too. I can't even tell you how proud I am of what we do and the way we speak. I am actually the mother of a young daughter myself, and to know that I can bring this to her and the rest of the world is very special. So I really believe in what we're doing.
Awesome.
And thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Cydney, and I hope to see you in another VeggieTales really soon.
That sounds great. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Cydney. Mike, should we give just a little sneak peek into the production behind Sweetpea? There was some challenges. This is a pretty complicated show technically, which some of our fans may not understand all that goes into it.
Yeah, I mentioned the mirror. There's 3 mirrors, on the countertop and Snooderella and now in Sweetpea. And Sweetpea, the mirror is animated. And as we'll see in a minute, he's got limbs. So, he grows his arms, he grows his legs, and he walks around.
That's because every once in a while in a VeggieTales show, we have to throw them some arms somewhere.
That's right. Yeah. We couldn't do that at the beginning of VeggieTales when we started 17 years ago, but we can now. So, but one of the things, we were working with a new animation studio, which is always a challenge because you need to get everybody kind of up to date on how to animate your characters, how to emote the specific personality of your characters. And I really think they did a great job in animation, really capturing, who our characters are. And Larry looks like Larry and Petunia looks like Petunia. So I think that was wonderful. We have a number of sets, a number of special effects. And, oops, I dinged. And getting all of those... just pulling all that stuff together in any production is just a huge challenge. And so, we went right up to the line on this production, getting shots out. In fact, as we're watching this show, some of the shots that we're watching are not final, and so we're just really hoping that we'll see some final shots pretty soon.
Haven't we dubbed this show "Don't Stop Believing"?
Yeah, don't stop believing.
DSB.
DSB.
That's what we tell each other.
Yeah.
DSB.
Yeah, there's two acronyms, DSB and CBB. Could be better.
Well, I know it's going to be beautiful, but the textures of the castle, just those castle walls, they look so. We just saw the shots.
Yeah, we just saw them last night.
Beautiful.
Yeah, they're looking really, really great. So. I just wanted to really capture a fairy tale feel. One of the other things that was really fun in the show was just all of the, and Sweetpea in particular, we wanted to make it feel like a princess musical. And, Mark Steele, who wrote Sweetpea and wrote the songs for this, along with Kurt, helping him out, with arrangement and melody. I think the songs really came together really well on this show. Just a lot of fun music.
And I love all the little forest critters.
Yeah,
the hedgehog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the hedgehog.
The worms that form a heart.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy, but that's okay. It's part of the message. But it's fun with the animals. And an interesting story about the animals. We had in the VeggieTales backlot some characters that we had used in the past, including the porcupines from Jonah, and so. So we pulled back that model, but as we went through production, it just turned into a really difficult character to animate. And we had plans for a skunk to make sort of a cameo, but the skunk was a new model, and it just worked so much better in this show that we swapped the roles of the skunk and the porcupine. So the porcupine initially wasn't named Gaspard, but then we swapped that to the skunk, so the skunk shows up more. But it's just fun. You can't have a a princess story without woodland animals. So.
No.
Nothing like getting close to nature.
Come with me. I want to show you a book my father and I have been reading.
I smell like a wet dog.
So, oh, and Mark, also the writer of Sweetpea, was the voice of the mirror. So he had a lot of fun doing that. And then Madame Blueberry, Megan Murphy, just did such a great job. I think Madame Blueberry is at her best when she's whining.
I do too. I do too. And
Yeah.
the things we can do with her as a character. I mean, think of what she looked like in, Madame Blue.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
look at her here now with her
Yeah.
big crown and,
Oh yeah, yeah.
her, kind of pursed lips and her whiny attitude. She's
Yeah.
terrific.
Oh yeah, she's such a great character. Joe Spataford, who did the concept on her, queenly attire, did a great job too. So the mirror was a real technical challenge because if we were to have him reflective the whole time, we would have never got the show done. So one of the things we had to do was sort of give him a generic reflective texture, and just sort of reveal that every once in a while, reveal that he's reflecting her every once in a while. But stylistically, I think it turned out okay. I think part of it would have been distracting if we would have just seen, if we would have seen the room in his stomach the whole time.
Yeah, I think so too. You have to kind of make him his own person.
Yeah.
Now look at that catch. Queen blue with pearls.
Yes. They are lovely pearls.
Pearl earrings, pearl necklace.
Part of the fun part about this too now is, just this mirror is this evil character, being able to give her a false reflection, so this mirror is showing the queen what she wants to see and what she thinks, she should look like, being, younger and what she thinks is more beautiful. When on the outside, she's revealing the true nature of her heart.
It's a royal family tradition.
I think one of the fun things about this show too, what Mark did a really good job with, is combining a ton of princess stories. You think about Cinderella, you think about Sleeping Beauty, Rapunzel, you can just see Snow White, all of these classic princess stories kind of jumbled together in one story. It's just a lot of fun, so she's banished, she meets the 7 Snow Peas, she gets stuck up in a tower.
Characters.
Yeah, the 7 Snow Peas. Yeah, those guys are great, unbrilliant. I can fit an acorn in my belly button.
And you have a salad on your
It's a vegetable with a salad on his head.
I grew up with a Danish granddad who, in his childhood, he was just told the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever visited Copenhagen, part of visiting Copenhagen is seeing the Little Mermaid statue.
Oh, cool.
Really, his stories are something that, of course, the Danes
yeah.
are very proud of. So
Yeah.
I was, raised on those stories.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Princess and the Pea and the Little Mermaid. And I have so many fond memories
Yeah.
of my grandpa telling me all of these stories. And we used to just beg for them, the retelling over and over and over. Because, really, in most fairy tales, not only is there that magical quality, but there's always a lesson.
Oh,
there's
yeah.
some darker than others.
Well, I was gonna say
Yeah.
they all end with freaking the kids out.
Yeah, Hansel and Gretel really takes a bad turn. But anyway, just all to say, we used to love fairy tales.
Yeah.
And I do think, even kids today, we used to read fairy tales to our kids as well, as a genre.
Oh yeah,
And-
yeah. Well, absolutely, and they're all wonderful morality plays, and they all the classic ones, tend to be a little bit darker if you go back to the original, but they always have something to say about, how
Good and evil.
Yeah, good and evil, and the consequences of our actions, and so I think they're really valuable. I mean, that was one of the things that really drew me to Pinocchio, the original story, which is pretty dark in places, but I think. At the heart of that, it's just a wonderful morality play based on biblical worldview, which, certainly Hans Christian Andersen and Carlo Collodi, had. So it's really, really neat to be able to, to now, in a modern era, take that and incorporate that worldview into a fairy tale.
I'm wondering if our fans have picked up here the minstrels.
Ah, the minstrels, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're such a fun, it's a great storytelling style, especially with kind of that Renaissance medieval flavors, just to have these traveling minstrels narrating as we go along. But Mr. Lunt and Jimmy, both voiced by Phil Vischer, are just a lot of fun throughout this whole thing. And later, they actually score the action scene by singing, which is just a really funny gag, sort of an inside musical gag. So I think musicians will really appreciate it, but I think it's really, it works really well just in the regular context of the story.
They kind of have that combination of they're just annoying enough, to be
They
also
just pop in and intrusive.
entertaining.
Yeah, that's right.
Personal
space.
You could just feel how closely annoying they are.
Oh, there's Gaspard. He's a cute little skunk.
He's very
He does smell too
cute.
good,
Here we
but he's
go.
cute.
Okay, these are my favorite. See, here we go. Everybody can guess. What's this?
Okay, so here we even have, we dipped into the
Goldilocks.
Goldilocks lore
Yeah.
here, So we got Goldilocks and Snow White in the same
We mixed
hut.
them all up.
That's right.
We took liberties.
Yeah. Oh, and here comes a princess in the pea illusion here. So she can't sleep because there's a pea under her mattress. Oh, and this set is actually a reuse of Gelato's workshop from Pistachio, which was in turn a reuse of Boo Booville workshop for the inventor, Larry, who played the inventor in Boo Booville. So got some good
from the show Abe and the Amazing Promise.
Abe and the Amazing Promise. Yeah, so we got some great mileage out of this set. Ah, there's on brilliant.
There's the acorn.
That's right.
That's a pretty nifty trick. Is that something that you or Mark could do? And so that's
Shoot
how it
an
got written
acorn
into
out
the
of our
script?
belly button. Yeah, we tested some different things. We tested some wrenches and some.
Yeah, I wanna see that.
Yeah, but
Next Christmas party.
Acorns turned out to be the perfect size. It's just so funny. It's so random at the beginning here, but of course it does play a part in our resolution of the action scene.
And that's when the kingdom starts falling apart.
If only we weren't so adorable.
So it's great. Jean-Claude and Philippe have always been the exact same model. You can't differentiate them apart visually. And then to add 5 more of them, actually 4 more of them, because Unbrilliant is the only different one. It was hard to keep track of them in animation. So animators came back, which one is talking? I don't know which one is supposed to be talking, because they kind of sound alike too, but you have to really know them well to realize which one is which.
We run contests with our fans, and like one of the things we'll ask is we'll say, hey, give us a ranking, of your favorite VeggieTales characters. And the French peas come in 4th.
The 4? Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Wow. As a pair, they're
They're
not
just
separated.
French peas.
Yeah, just
yeah,
French
they aren't
peas.
separated.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
That's awesome.
It's Larry, Bob, Jr., French peas.
And French peas. Okay. Yeah.
And with Petunia, actually
Okay.
very close
Very
behind
close.
the French
Cool.
peas.
That's awesome. That's my order. I like that. I like that order.
Yeah. Oh, she's lovely.
It was fun kind of coming up with her, just her different phases, as she starts to make more and more ugly decisions. I was talking to Joe about it at the beginning of the show and just said, hey, she just needs to just get hideous, what can you come up with? And he came back with this drawing that he told me he just kind of did it as a joke. He said, oh, they'll never go for this. And I was like, that's perfect. So, but she just looked so funny.
Okay, Mike, so you've got to answer the question. If we're talking about how it's beauty on the inside that counts, well, what are we saying here? When she just gets uglier and uglier and uglier, that shouldn't really matter.
Yeah, we could parse this philosophy and really get into some deep waters here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but just that whole idea of her inward decisions having a consequence. We wanted to kind of reflect that and kind of a comical hideousness coming out of her.
Right. And of course, what we really teach here in the story at the end is that juxtaposition of Queen Blueberry and Petunia is that what makes Petunia so beautiful is what's inside her heart.
Yeah. It's not that she's cute on
Right.
the outside. It's just the decisions that she makes and the kindness that she shows to the queen and that's what's beautiful about her.
Right. And that's really what gets recognized and really adored.
Yeah, yeah.
They're so cute.
Jerry Gord. Some people might think that he sounds a little bit like Larry, and those people would be right.
So see, at this point, she doesn't see her true self.
That's right. Oh yeah, every time she looks in the mirror, she sees a falsely beautiful version of herself. So
Right.
she doesn't get that yet. So she doesn't find that until later.
How many times do we look in the mirror and see a false self?
That's right. Mm. Just with the right type of lighting, that can do wonders.
That
Oh,
mirror,
that mirror.
really
He's
is
so
a bad
treacherous.
guy.
He's so treacherous. I like this all camera move here as we move out.
Yeah.
Just the minstrel's been hanging out.
Here come
watching
the
whole
minstrels
thing.
doing the little backstory here, helping us stay on track.
Originally, we had the minstrels. There was another scene right after this where the minstrels went out to get Prince Larry. For timing, we just had to cut it out. But I don't think, at the end of it, I don't think I miss it. So they just say, hey, let's go get the prince. And then, they come back with the prince to the rescue afterwards. Works out pretty well.
That looked like a King George. Is that a King George?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. This whole, the Queen's quarters and the balcony is, that's a reuse of the King George and the Ducky castle. So, the textures on the inside are different. So it's a little changed up. But, we used that same set. And originally the script had called for, them being in a dining room, but we wanted to economize the set. So we just said, hey, let's just, set up a table, in her quarters. She's got advisors and subjects, so they can load up a table during mealtime. So this is a Princess Bride ode. Inconceivable.
There's the lazy Susan doing the switch.
That's right.
Although they didn't have a lazy Susan in Princess Bride.
No, he just kind of hid
Right.
the vials behind and did the switch, and then they had the battle of wits
Right.
to figure out what was the poisoned vial.
I wonder if Sweetpea has the antidote built up. Isn't that what happened in Princess Bride? He had built up an immunity.
Yeah, he'd built up immunity, so
So it
it
didn't
wouldn't have
matter
mattered.
which,
Yeah. Well, that would be an interesting thing to. She actually ends up if you play the Lazy Susan in slow mo, she picks up a different one, which one of her advisors ends up drinking later because he's thirsty and he falls asleep. So we don't answer the question of how he wakes up. Maybe that's in a different episode.
This is what I like here. She's starting to really, speak what she believes and is true about her, and you start seeing the mirror get nervous.
Yeah, he gets nervous, and the Queen really starts to.
She starts to
hear
take
her.
it in.
Yeah, she starts to hear her. And we wanted to, when we were developing it, really figure out, at what point does the Queen really start to turn, and when does her character arc, and it starts here. We start to see it, and later it comes, when the mirror
Love
has
that shot.
Sweetpea on the turret, and as she's really turning, then she starts to go back to her normal self. She starts to lose her, rabbit teeth and her, bushy eyebrows and facial hair. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
My eyebrows are too bushy. Ooh, the true nature of the mirror is also being revealed.
That's right. It's a very Sherlock Holmes moment
Yes.
right here.
Knowing one day he could overthrow the monarchy.
What? Then why were you helping me?
One of the challenges for this mirror too was to make him, the bad guy and sinister, but not make him scary.
Not too menacing.
Yeah, not too menacing. So he's got that menacing voice and that menacing look, but he's also sort of ridiculous. I mean, just watching him walk like that, it just makes me laugh. Just that ding, 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 ding. So he's this big, tall, menacing mirror, but he's also very ridiculous. The Prince to the rescue. It's funny with Larry as a hero. We do the same thing in Larry Boy. He comes as a hero, but he never really does anything.
He's a bit of a bumbling.
He's a bumbling hero. He tries hard, but at the end of the day, he does help with Petunia. He catches Petunia, at the end here, and they bounce down on the, on the peas. But he's not quite the hero that he hopes to be. Okay, here goes the singing action sing. the action scene was actually a real big challenge for production, because typically with animation, what you'll do is you'll record all the voices first, and then from there you'll go into animation, and then once it's animated, it'll go into score. So you're scoring, in this case, Kurt Heinecke, who does our score, is scoring to finished animation, so he can pick up all of his cues and everything. The challenge with this scene is we couldn't have them singing this. We couldn't have them singing the score until the animation was already done, and so it was sort of a chicken and an egg thing. So we edited the version first of the action scene, and then had them animate that, and then we had. No, I'm sorry. We laid it out in storyboards, and then Kurt wrote the score for it to storyboards. We brought that back to Phil. Phil sang it as Kurt had written it, and then that went into animation. So it was just much more complicated than it normally is, but I think it turned out really fun. So it's really fun to kind of see these guys react.
I think we do action scenes well. I'm just recalling, our most recent release, Saint Nick. I love the scene where they're going through the snow. And of course, what became the iconic image for us was when, they're in the sleigh and it crosses over and you see the moon in the back. It's just kind of that Santa Claus.
Yeah.
See, we got so many comments on that. But,
Oh, yeah.
They're in and out of the village, and there's chasing scenes. And
Yeah. And just this whole, climbing to the top of the castle.
Right.
This was a very much a Beauty and the Beast, sort of ode right here.
Right.
But yeah, it's great if you can have, just from a story structure standpoint, you have your action climax and then your kind of emotional climax. And I think our most successful shows, those two are overlapped. When the main character has her epiphany, right in or around the action scene, you kind of have these really exciting moments building up to, the realization of the character. So
Look at Sweetpea. She had immunity. She awoke.
this turkey dinners will always make me
Yes.
sleepy.
Forget the apple cider.
There he is.
Oh,
I think he's gonna have to be kissed by a frog.
that was the real culprit. Now she's back to her real self.
Yeah, she starts to go back. Yeah, and then she's transformed back to her real self by now.
Did you add the beauty mark?
Well, she's always had that. She's always had that beauty mark, which also Mr. Lunt has too as well. So he's beautiful on the outside and the inside. I like these little bath toy noises that the peas have when they bounce. Remember in the original version of the script, Larry and Sweetpea were going to get married.
Oh,
Remember that? And we talked about
yes.
that. We had a discussion about that. Is how do we end this? Because most princess stories end with the prince and the princess getting married.
It ties up in a bow.
It ties up in a bow.
Happily ever after.
But really, if you look at this story, it's called Sweet Pea Beauty, but the real hero in the story is the queen, because the queen is the one that learns the lesson. She's the one that starts at the beginning wanting, to be crowned queen again. And to really wrap up the story, it really needs to wrap up with her being recrowned queen again. So we forewent the wedding and ended at the coronation.
Well, I can't help it. I think the story, we also, there's spots of just reality here. It's the queen is the hero, and she's in part the hero because what she learned from her mistakes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
She was teachable.
Yep. She
And I
made
think
that
sometimes
journey.
as parents, what we can, not meaning to, we can tell our kids, all about what they should aim for, but how much do we ever, kind of teach them about how to handle mistakes or missteps, which we all have,
Yeah.
and just how
absolutely.
God can redeem them, and
Yep.
as we remain teachable.
Yep.
That's
Absolutely. Oh, I was thinking about the mirror, and what happened to the mirror. Obviously, and the rumor, there's a couple of times, most of the time we redeem our villains, but except for when our villains are vices. So if you look at, the rumor weed or the
rumor
fib
weed
from
and the
outer
fib.
space. Yeah. So those villains sort of don't represent, actual people, redeemable people, but more vices. And so, you know, we broke our mirror. He ended up in shards. So, but we didn't want to make that too scary either. So we did it in a way that I think was pretty fun with a wah 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 wah.
And reveal her true beauty within.
So our
I
little
love
coronation
this.
ceremony.
Yes.
That queen. See,
Great
I think
musical.
Petunia would have a hard time being the queen too, because that crown would just crush her.
Yes.
She's gonna when she does eventually marry the prince and become queen, she's gonna need to get something more dainty. Maybe she can borrow Snooderella's crown.
Yes. But see, Sweet Pea Beauty, she wasn't greedy for power.
That's right. That's right. She wasn't acting behind the scenes to grab the throne.
No.
Wow, that was great.
So you know, we made over for folks who didn't see Pistachio, our last show. It's when we had the countertop makeover, and so kind of going forward with our countertops, you know, we have our new QWERTY and our new blue wall. That was the big deal with the last makeover. They just painted the walls blue, and that was it. But it's fun just sort of having our new QWERTY with video mail.
We didn't get any comments on the blue wall or QWERTY, so if any of you out there want to let us know you noticed.
Oh, I heard a few. Not on the blue
We-
wall. Yeah, I don't know if anybody noticed the blue wall. That was subtle.
We didn't
but-
hear about the blue
Oh,
wall.
really? Didn't? Yeah,
no,
yeah, I didn't
not
hear
through
about the blue wall
customer
yet.
service. Now we did hear about the change in the theme song, how we tightened up the pace.
Oh yeah. That the theme song was like a minute and a half, and now it's under
Right.
a minute. It's just
Right.
a little quicker and
And
peppier.
you know, folks, we had some folks that noticed.
Yeah.
They didn't have a negative reaction. They just noticed the change.
Yeah, just noticed
you know.
the change. Yeah, I think if it would have been too different, you know, we would have
Right.
heard about
right.
that. So.
But this just kind of tightened it up and.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was nice, and reanimated it too, you know,
We
and
basically
brought the whole cast in it to
we
sing.
pulled out the spa in the box and we
That's
applied
right.
it to the theme song.
Yeah. Brought this back from Minnesota Cuke in the Search for Noah's Ark.
Do that.
Noah's Umbrella, sorry.
What's on the inside? That's what God sees. That's right, Larry.
And I'm beautiful just the way
Oh,
God
that's cute. And that's, you know, adding in that live action.
Yeah, it's really
component.
fun.
It's
really
really fun.
Yeah, I think that helps really kids to relate. You know, and you know, we did the first one last time, and you know, we just got some good reactions about that. And I think it just, you know, I know kids love to watch other kids and to see that they're learning that lesson, and an actual kid is learning that lesson is great.
It's one of my top 40 things I want to do is I want to be in QWERTY.
Okay, all right, we'll have QWERTY and Leslie and QWERTY. Let's talk a minute about this song
Oh,
about
gosh.
Nicole Nordeman over the credits. This is such a beautiful song, and you know, I know initially, Leslie, you reached out to Nicole,
Right.
I think your manager, to
Yes. This has really been, I think Nicole would say if she were here that if not her life message, certainly one of her top life messages about how, you know, our beauty, it's inside what counts. And when we, you know, showed her the concept of the story, and really we started with just the message that we wanted to, you know, resource parents with and resource our fans, both girls and boys, so that they could be really ministered to. She went nuts.
Yeah, and you know, I know she had obviously spoken on the topic and sung on the topic, and so yeah, that's kind of what, you know, made us want to say, hey, I wonder what she would think about doing a song for us. And you know, it was neat just having her watch the storyboards at the time. She hadn't, the show wasn't done, but you know, she came back with this song, and you know, when she shared it with us, it was just the real rough version. It's just her on piano, and she, you know, was saying, "Oh, I hope you like this. I'm not sure."
Oh,
you know,
was just, we
Yeah.
were all stunned.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
just,
we're just like,
in,
"Oh,
in
this
the
is
office,
amazing."
we
Yeah.
listened to it, and we were just practically dancing up and down.
Yeah.
She really, you know, so much got the message. It's such a beautiful song.
Yeah.
And then people will have to make sure to enjoy, as one of the bonus features, we shot a whole music video
Yeah. Yeah.
of Nicole singing the song. And I love how they introduced the mirror as a prop in the music video.
Yeah.
And she just comes alive, you know, when she sings it in person and you see that.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Oh, it's just lovely. And by the way, I'm just going to have to comment again here, Mike, that you've really embraced the woman inside of you. These credits with the pink.
Yeah, we
swirlies.
went all out, pink swirlies and the whole thing.
It's just, you've
Yeah.
really got it.
When Brian Roberts, Ron Eddy did the title design, and Brian Roberts helped to do the animation for it. It was really funny. In an initial pass, you know, he did a gag reel where it came up, you know, directed by Mike Nawrocki, and then quotes appear, or parentheses a quote appeared, not a girl, just so it was clear. But it was fun. But yeah, Ron and Brian did a great job on these credits, and of course, you know, just watching all these names go by, people who worked really hard on this, just to really appreciate
It's all the
their
Big
efforts.
Idea team, isn't it, that makes this what it is?
Yeah, and the folks in Hawaii,
folks in
aloha,
Hawaii,
aloha,
aloha.
Hawaii, aloha, Hawaii folks. All right, we got the Big Idea logo. Bob and Larry turning it around. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking about Sweetpea Beauty.
Thank you. Bye.